Well, welcome to Voices of Women. I'm Chris Danis, your host, and I'm also the founder of Women of Wisdom Foundation, which began in 1993. And every year we have been doing conferences that just empower women and give voice to women. And also one of our big things that we do is it's a place where women can share their story and be witnessed. So we are in our 29th year, and this year, because of everything that's going on, we are going to be online for the very first time. So that means everybody from around the US and other countries can join us. It's March 11th through the 14th. Our theme is Celebrating Spirit of Women, United We Are One. And you can read about it at our website, womenofwisdom.org. So today, one of my guest is one of our not a workshop presenter, our keynote presenter, Luisah Teish. She was a featured guest at our very first conference in 1993. So I'm very excited to have her back. And she is a writer, arts activist, spiritual counselor. She's initiated elder in the Iyanifa Orisha tradition and a member of the Global Council for Ancestor Veneration. She's authored 6 books, including Jambalaya, the Natural Woman's Book of Personal Charms and Practical Rituals. It's a woman's spirituality classic. She also has a book of Zen Doodles called Spirit Revealing, Color Healing. And her books have been translated into German, Spanish, and French, and her prayers and poetry have been published in 7 indigenous languages. She's a member of the Fountain and the Mother Earth Delegation of United Indigenous Nations. She has designed, directed, and performed myth and ritual theater in Europe, Venezuela, New Zealand, and the United States. She is a spiritual culture consultant for Jubilee Justice Journey for Reparations, Restorative Justice for Oakland Youth, and the Center for Sacred Studies. And she's going to present on March 13th, Saturday evening, Oshun, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this right, Talade. You can correct me.
Talade.
Talade. Praise singing the divine feminine with Luisah Teish. So welcome, Luisah.
Ashe. I want to begin by saying Alafia. In the Yoruba language, this greeting is asking that we have good health and be at peace with our neighbors. And although this greeting is good anytime, it is especially important now as we face the COVID-19 pandemic, the pandemic of white supremacy, the pandemic of poverty and hunger, and our messed up relationship to Mother Nature, which we are seeing in the behavior of the weather and nature itself. So I am really asking that we have good health to find the way to have peace, real peace with our neighbors.
Yes, yes. So be it. I think we all are desiring
Mhm.
that and trying to figure out what do we have to do to get there? And you are a voice for that. One of the reasons we're having you at Women of Wisdom, we need to hear from our leaders, from our elders, from
Right.
our spiritual, spiritual guidance. It's
Mhm.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background, because you come from a very interesting background that has led you on this journey.
Yes, I had the blessing of being born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana, at a time when New Orleans felt more like a sister city of the Caribbean than of the northern United States, you know. So we have African, Native American, French, Spanish, Italian, and Jewish influence in the culture there, which of gumbo, a cultural gumbo, you know. So I grew up with a mother who not only was living what we would call a red and black lifestyle, okay? That is with having kept retentions from African culture and also retentions from Native American culture, that the period in our history when Native North Americans and people of African descent were working together. So I grew up with my mother hand sewing moccasins, you know, and with the women in the community making not only cornbread, but acorn bread. Certain things um, came through. There were a lot of African ways, especially in terms of the spirituality, the practice of a whole community addressing people's dreams, a lot of dream interpretation. I saw the women in my community get together with my mother and make rain, and the kind of community activity that occurred when a baby was born. I found out, later that those ways were African retention. Now, coming up in the segregated South, there was all of that. Where I couldn't go, what I couldn't do, the Black people. And, one of my strongest memories is of standing on the highway waiting for the school bus and coming to recognize the truck with the dog and the gun and the white boy who would hunt me down. I came to develop a sense of when he was approaching or when that danger was there, and learn to know when to hide. Okay. Also, seeing the injustice every day, I was also inspired to press against it, especially at that time I was trying to be Catholic. And I think I have a memory of at one point going to what I knew was a white church, because the church where Black people were allowed to go was two times into the back of the church and sitting in the back, but being chased with people throwing rocks at me because, according to them, the Lord had made me inferior to them, and I had no business being in their presence. So these things impacted me at an early age. The combination of having to deal with injustice, having inherited a mystical way of handling things, and also a love for the earth. Those three things
Mhm.
were instilled in me by the time I was 7, you know. And when I look back on my life, those seeds that were planted there grew into a forest of trees, you know, an orchard that I then drew from to become the person that I am.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's quite a background.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's a story of survival of what you had to do at a very young age. No one should have to go through that. No one.
I know.
And
I
hopefully,
know. Our
I don't know
children.
how long it's going to
Mm,
take, but and we're all wondering how we can change this. What can we do as individuals? And we're actually having a panel at the conference on racial equity, and how we can become allies. And we have a very diverse group of panel members. Um, and so that's I think it's very important to have these dialogues. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you talking about it. So getting to who you are now, and I know I experienced you as a storyteller. I was in a conference down in California that you were the weaver of the weekend, and brought stories. So and that's one of the things you're going to do at Women Wisdom, the storyteller and the priestess of Oshun. So let's talk about that. How that.
Yeah, well, what was wonderful, one of the wonderful things about my childhood was that my mother had a way of telling stories so that you thought they happened to her around the corner yesterday. She would tell stories that she told me when I was a child. It wasn't until I was in my 20s that I opened a book of Negro folklore and saw that that was, a story that belonged to the culture. She always made it very, very personal and very, very alive. Also, in my community, young people were not allowed to question the elders about things. I remember one time my mother and two of the women in the neighborhood were sitting around talking, and I went up to ask a question, which you begin with, "Excuse me, mama," and it's "Yes, ma'am," and "No, sir," and that kind of thing. And I asked a question, and my mother told me, "This is a racehorse conversation and no jackasses are allowed." Right? So at the same time, the elders in the community would lay a proverb on you. My mother's favorite was, "Remember, baby, a cow needs her tail more than once to fan a fly." Now, what does that mean, right? Your intelligence was measured by your ability to decipher proverbs, and the lessons of life were imparted to you through stories, okay? Through stories. That was the home training, the homegrown education that you got. So I grew up around around that magic. But as I went to school and traveled about, I became a dancer. Okay. At one point in my life, I was a member of Catherine Dunham's dance troupe, and I studied all these different dance forms. And I had for several years a group, the Omawali Dance Drum Ensemble in St. Louis, and we did choreography that was designed to act out the mythology of African Americans. And I had 30 dances at one point. I was performing with a 10-piece drum ensemble, a 40-piece jazz band, and 9 actors. And then one day it occurred to me that all of my choreography was telling a story, okay? Of the 30 pieces of choreography that I had, there was only 1 or 2 that was just based on moving to the mathematics of music, you know. All the rest of them told a story. And then I think it was around 1977 or 78, it occurred to me that with just a little bit of practice, instead of trying to get 9 people to a rehearsal with their shoes on and their costumes in place, right? That I could do this by myself.
Much
That
easier.
all I needed was a basket. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
with some props and some rehearsal. And so I took up the business of becoming a solo storyteller. Okay. I continued to do theater with other people, but went from being primarily a choreographer to being primarily a solo storyteller. And I found that storytelling is a great way to teach.
Mm-hmm.
It is a wonderful way to teach because it not only engages the mind, okay, it evokes a feeling in people so that the lesson of the story stays with you longer, okay? And I came to understand better why my elders taught us through story and through proverb. It stays with you longer than an intellect than a lecture does.
Right.
It
And we can
really
relate to
does.
stories. People love stories, and we can relate our personal life of, to the story,
That's right.
or just
That's
learn
right.
from somebody
It's
else's
beautiful.
story, but often we relate to it. And you're right, it's about the
Hmm.
feeling, getting the
It's
feeling. And so
about
how
the
does that lead to the priestess?
feeling.
Yeah, priestess of Oshun. How does that lead to priestess of Oshun?
Ah, yes. Yes. What is amazing is growing up, in the South and in New Orleans, there were certain practices that I saw my mother and the neighborhood women do, such as putting down a circle of salt to pray for rain, and they got rain, you know. And I saw certain things, and those times when I was brave enough to ask, Mama, why y'all do that? You know, her answer would be, because that's what the old folks say. Okay. And then I go ask Aunt Mary Bell Reed, who was older than my mama, and I said, why y'all do that? And she said, because that's what the old folks say. And I went to Mama Ludi, who was the oldest person, and she said, because that's what the old folks say. So, if Mama Ludi, who's 103, says that's what the old folks say, then she talking about some real old folk. You see what I'm saying? Okay. She talking about the ancestors. Okay. And beginning to look for and invoke for what is the meaning of all of this. It led me to read materials. It put my mind on finding this. And I want to say this very, very clearly. What is beautiful is that when we concentrate on something with a strong desire and we speak to the ancestors about that desire, things begin to happen to lead you to the fulfillment of that desire. And in my case, and at this point, I was in Oregon at Reed College. And my dance partner at the time had just won a scholarship to go study dance in Germany. And at the same time, a group of educators came from East St. Louis, Illinois, to hold a conference in Portland. Okay. And my house was always the place where visiting people could come. I had dinner parties, and people who were activists always gathered at my place. And so I had a dinner for these educators, and in the process of the dinner, they told me that they were from the Experiment in Higher Education in East St. Louis, Illinois, and that Catherine Dunham, who is the first lady of Black dance, with no disrespect to Pearl Primus, but Catherine Dunham was one of the first people to visit African villages and Caribbean villages and track our original dances,
Mm.
mix it with ballet and modern, and create a technique so that people, Western people, could learn it. So I had my present dance teacher to write a recommendation for me to the Dunham School. It was so strong that Madame made me a teacher trainee, and I moved from Portland to East St. Louis, Illinois. All of a sudden, I am now in heaven. All of a sudden, I am now living with people from Africa and Haiti and Brazil and Cuba, and I am in the mix, right? So now I get to see firsthand the source of those retentions that my mother had held on to. Now I had African women to talk to about the meaning of the things that my mother did with my hair. Now I had, Haitian women to talk to about, those strange drawings that they used to do on the ground and that sort of thing. And so with Madame, I was exposed to the dances of the African diaspora. When I left St. Louis and came to California, there was a group called Batakoto, and with Bill Summers and Tracy Dixon, Ibaye, and some wonderful performers. And we did the dances of the Orishas. We created choreography, and we would drive down to Los Angeles, to visit this Cuban priest, and we would show him our choreography and ask him, is this authentic enough? Are we doing this correctly, right? And on one visit down there, the elder looked at me and he said, one day you will be a priestess, right? One day you will be a priestess. And at the time I thought, yeah, no, I don't want to be no priestess. I want, I want to win an Oscar. But like I said before, once you start seeking your destiny, everything happens to move you toward it. And so I continued to meet people. I received a divination, and when the divination said that I was a child of Oshun, the goddess of love, art, sensuality, beauty, fresh water, the generous, benevolent one, the most benevolent one, I doubted what the priest said because I had been going through very, very hard times. I didn't feel well. I had lost a baby. I was broke. My relationship had been a wreck. And so when he said, love, you're a child of the love goddess, I said, I doubt that, honey. I really doubt that. He said, not only are you her child, but you're her favorite child. You were a favorite child. And then I really knew he was crazy, and I recited for him all the challenges that I had, and I'll never forget this. He said, Mihada, the finest jewelry is tempered in the hottest fire and then plunged into the coldest water before it is polished. It's polishing time for you,
Mm.
you know?
Mhm.
It is polishing time for you. And so I set upon accepting that. and taking a look at saying to the goddess, Mama, who am I? Why am I here? You know, what am I supposed to do? And the answers kept coming and kept coming and kept coming, you know, and now it's been 40 years, and sometimes I still go to my altar and say, Goddess, what's up? What you got me doing now? What you got me doing now, Mama? So it's a long journey, but what it means is that I have been trained, I have been tempered, educated to deal specifically with issues impacting women. I have to really look toward healing the wounds, and I look to creating as much beauty in the world as possible. That's what it means to serve Oshun.
Mhm.
That's
That's
what it
great. Yeah,
means.
so I imagine we'll experience that when you're with us in March. And
Mm-hmm.
so, Oshun, do you consider that a real energy in our modern lives? It's an ancient energy. It's, the
Mm-hmm.
ancient African, I mean, I don't know, maybe you know how long it's been around. Is there any?
5,000 years is what
Yeah,
people say.
yeah.
Yeah, but she's very much alive. You know, the Orishas themselves are the personifications of the forces of nature blended with various manifestations throughout time. So Oshun origin Nigeria, the Oshun River, but anywhere that there is sweet water, anywhere that there is a sweet water river, we have Oshun. Anywhere that there is sexual attraction between two people, we have, excuse me, we have the energy of Oshun. Anywhere that someone is being inspired to um, to create something beautiful, we have the energy of Oshun at work. And Oshun is very much alive in our lives today, not only because creative people are writing about the Orishas, doing plays, creating works of art, naming institutions after them, but quite literally, through this COVID pandemic, we have said that Babaluaye, the god of death, and Iku, the god of death, is walking around freely, feasting. And when we consult the oracle, we are told that the spirit who is coming to help that situation is Oshun. Okay?
Mhm.
Oshun is coming to help us. That means that number one, we need to drink clean water. Okay. Number two, we need to hold our loved ones close to us. Number three, we need to take a real good look at what are the natural ways of preventing illness. Okay. And we really, really need to use our creativity to find new solutions to old problems. Oshun will enchant us.
Mm.
She will enchant us to shift the paradigm. She will enchant us to find more creative ways to live. So when I hear people say, oh, I'll be glad when COVID is over so that we can return to normal, I say, no, no. It was not normal in the first place. You don't want to return to something that led us here. Okay.
Mhm.
We have to be open to um, a transformation that must happen in order for us to continue to exist, to survive, and to thrive. So we have to be ready for the new. We have to be ready to change our, especially our divisive attitude. The prefix pan needs to be elevated in our thinking and in our language. This is a pandemic, all right? It can't be that, well, the people in America cannot be concerned about the people in China, or the people in this group can't be concerned about the people in that group, is pan. The problem will be solved when we stop the divisions between ourselves and nature. It has to stop. And what I know about my mother, Oshun, the generous, benevolent one, if the only way you're going to learn the lesson is for her to spank your ass, it'll get spanked. Okay? That's what's happening now.
Yes.
That's what's happening now.
Yeah, for sure. And it's exposing, like we can't go back. It's changing things, and to think we could go back is not, no, and we are creative,
That's
people,
right.
human beings are creative, and and I love the young people coming forward and their creativity of ideas of solving our, environmental issues and
Yes.
everything that's going on. It gives me hope when I hear stories of the young people,
Yes.
and we need hope, and we need to know that we do have the ability to
Mm-hmm.
turn things around, make changes, or yeah, because it otherwise we get lost in our traumas, get lost in our fears,
Mm-hmm.
and where does that lead us? So
Yeah.
we need the voices, we need the storytellers like yourself
I share.
to bring the stories of hope, and what we have, the nature in us, that's connected to the nature and the earth. Well,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
yeah, so we're going to hear more when you're with us on March 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we're going to be celebrating Spirit of Woman United We Are One, and you're going to be bringing that aspect with you as well. And so, what would you love to leave with the listeners today from in this interview? Just some last words
Mm-hmm.
of wisdom.
Here's what I am advocating, actively advocating right now. Because there has been so much misinformation, so many lies, and so much division, I am encouraging everyday people to record, write down the stories of what's going on in your life right now. What are the stories of your ancestors, and what are the stories of your present experiences? Because if we don't do that, history could be a lie. Everyday people need to tell their stories so that we have the truth. When I was a child, I used to have this recurring dream that I was walking through a library and there were these books, and if I stopped and pulled this book out, it said the continuing life of so and so. And I imagined that there was a library somewhere where every day of our life was being recorded somehow, right? And that I could pull out a book and read Chris's life, right? We really need to have such things so that I can feel what's in your heart and your experience. And and you can feel what's in my heart and my experience. And when we sit down together, we'll have a whole story.
Mm.
We'll have a whole story. So I'm really encouraging people, don't think you have to be a famous writer, just tell the stories, share the stories.
Share the stories. Well, thank you so
Share
much
the
for being on the show today, Luisah.
Thank you for doing it. And I just want to send a blessing of healing.
Luisah, please give your website so people can find more about you.
Okay. My website is www.YeyeLuisahTeish.com. Yeye Luisah Teish.com. So it's just facebook.com/Luisah Teish.
Okay, great. And everybody can check out Woman of Wisdom and register so you can see Luisah in person online with us on March 11th through the 14th. Go to womanofwisdom.org. So thank you very much.